here, I think we should look at it. And
well, I'm looking at the Nancy Ging one. I see no specific proposal at all. Is there a specific proposal she verbally told you?
Not that she told me, but it looks to me like.
Yeah, well, I'm just looking at her summary on the third page.
There's a fourth page too.
Well, she's got history in there, graphs,
okay.
but go to the third page.
Well, I'd sure like to look at what they sent us before we make decisions. And apparently she's got a difference of opinion on the costs. So it seems like we should get some answers about that.
Ms. Brenner, when was that sent? Because I didn't see
Oh, they were both sent after midnight. I stayed up waiting for that first one, and it never came till after midnight. I was already had my computer off.
You know, just I'm really glad people are taking the time to communicate with us. And you know, I did my proposal yesterday. I even felt a little bit guilty about sending it at whenever I sent it yesterday, 2 p.m. or 3 p.m. because it wouldn't necessarily give people a chance to look at it. And if we delay action when we think there's a good option every time more information comes in after midnight, the day we're making a decision, we'll never make any decisions. And I'm not, maybe this is an exception, but just in general, you know, there's an infinite amount of information we could always get when it's good to get as much as possible, but I like to have it in a timely manner so I can go over it and keep on some kind of a schedule.
Councilmember Brenner?
Well, it wasn't my understanding that we were going to necessarily make a decision today. This was going to be a discussion.
Okay.
So
maybe not.
Okay, the motion is to approve or to recommend option 6 to the administration to start preparing an ordinance. And it's conditioned that the need-based pedestrian and need-based vehicle with driver discounts are eliminated. Any further discussion on the motion?
just one question.
Councilmember Brenner?
I guess I thought too we were having 2 discussions on it today, sorry. But I just, you know, we got to meet on Thursday anyway, and I would really like the time to just look at this.
Okay. Public Works Director Abart, if we delay, is there a simple way to quantify? It's my assumption you're bringing this forward because of the discrepancy in our target of 55% compared to what we're currently collecting. And then, of course, we have the big unknown of where the lease cost is going to end up. This is maybe not a fair question to ask you off the cuff, or maybe anybody could guess, but per week that we delay changing rates, how is the rate structure not going to go into effect till January 1st anyway? In other words, does it matter if we do it today versus in December, or were you going to implement it right away? And do you have an idea of how much per week or per month we are in a deficit to try to meet that 55% that we're not currently covering?
Well, yeah, I was going to say, I'm not going to even try to wing a weekly rate or anything like that. I mean, it's pretty clear that, you know, we are falling further and further behind. I've, you know, included the graph that indicates where we are at the end of the year with the actual ferry fund. And, you know, I've tried to paint the picture as to exactly what our situation is. You know, good government probably takes more time to evaluate. I don't know. I realized that the last time I went through this drill, it took a long time, and you were involved in many meetings as well.
A year.
As, yeah. And so, the difference this time is that we're really, like I said, I think I described this a couple weeks ago as, you know, we have a problem right now financially, and if we don't do something in the next, you know, if we're still sitting here a year from now, it's going to be super critical. I wouldn't describe it as critical right now, but it's it's headed that direction.
Yeah, it's pretty clear
And-
we're in a deficit situation as far as the ferry fund goes. I was just wondering, what about implementation? Was it your idea to implement right away, or?
Well, you're going to need, even when you go through, you introduce, then you got to wait a couple weeks to have a hearing, and, you know, even in best case scenario, if you vote in favor of whatever was introduced even after the hearing, you've got at least at best, a 45-day plus implementation process.
So
And we're going right into a time when there's holidays and things like that, so that I'd say you're going to need 50 to 60 days minimum just to implement whatever it is that happens.
So, for example, if we went ahead and made a choice today to request an ordinance, that would come forward on the November 9th meeting. It would be a hearing on November 26th. Then it's 10 days for the executive to sign. So, yeah, you wouldn't be implementing at the start of the year even if we adopted, even if we made a decision now.
I'd do my best to get something introduced tonight if you guys gave me direction to do so.
I see.
But
So there's a feeling among the administration that the sooner the better in terms of addressing the financial situation.
I would say that's accurate, yes.
Just a second.
You know, with regards to your first question, I could give you this kind of response for the administration as well. That, and we don't want to give you necessarily an off-the-cuff response, but here's a general outline of something. We've lost close to $950,000 in the last 5 years as a result of not meeting the targets that we want with our fare structure. And that shows up in the loss in fund balance in the ferry fund. We're looking at something even more significant this next year because of the increased costs that we know are going to hit us, and it's probably in the range of $400,000. So we've got a fairly big gap to overcome, and to delay implementing whatever you do, we could give you whatever you do with regards to setting the rates. We could give you something even just sort of as an off-the-cuff kind of thing today. If you wanted to delay a month or 2 months or 3 months, we could give you not right now, but we'd give you a sense of what that would take off of that fund balance, or how much we'd actually have to generate in fares over a certain period of time. Okay.
In terms of the timing, also, we have, I think, assumed, at least if I recall correctly from our discussion 2 weeks ago, $200,000 increase in cost on the lease expense. And now we're not going to know, because the mediation date has been pushed out, we're not even going to know till the start of December, if we do get resolution from the mediation, what that real number is going to be. And I think we're all kind of assuming that's the ground floor number, not the high number. So we shall see. Okay, Councilmember Brenner and then Nelson.
Well, I think I agree that we need to do something. I totally agree with that. But I think if we just move ahead with something, we could end up with the unintended consequences that'll have us right back here with another problem. And if people absolutely cannot afford to ride on the ferry, then they can't afford it. And if that happens, I think you're going to see some crises rather than some solutions. And it will probably mean people aren't going to be on the island anymore, but that's not going to run the ferry for us. And I think that if we're going to do this, we need to have something in place before we do this. And I only got to page 2 of Nancy Ging's questions, but I sure have some questions based on it. And these need to be answered. The very first one, repair and maintenance cost increase of $275,000 for replacing pilings broken during storm and replacing sheaves. When pilings or sheaves are broken, they're replaced, not repaired. And that significantly extends the life of the asset. According to state guidelines, those criteria would clearly make these costs a capital expenditure, not an operating expenditure. And that's just one. But I've seen that in several of the problems that we have. And, you know, one little fairness issue here. Some people on the council keep acting like, you know, the islanders are just whining and they don't, you know, they just want something for nothing. well, it happened before some of you got on the council, but there was a big capital item that was taken out of the road fund and stuck into this, and that's the docks. I don't support it, but even if you do, that made a huge change. I mean, it really did. So in all fairness to the islanders, it doesn't seem fair to put that there, and if it's gonna be there, there needs to be some kind of pathway that works a little bit better for them.
Any other discussion on the motion? Councilmember Nelson.
Well, I went to the summary page on 3.3 of Ms. King's proposal.
Did you get a copy?
I think that pretty well summarizes what she's looking at, and Councilmember Brenner already spoke to the first one. And then the second was the multi-ride discounts. She doesn't feel that the 10% is high enough to attract attention. So she was in favor, I think, of the proposals that illustrated a 20% discount rate on multi-rides. She, in fact, in the third paragraph states that she prefers the percentage method, and that the flat rate would be devastating to single or to young people on the island. And she's opposed to a taxing district.
At this time, she's not opposed to it, she's at this time.
I agree with that statement.
Yeah, so.
Well, that doesn't mean.
So that summarizes her arguments for her. As far as the sheet, a lot of the material in there was data that we've seen in the past. So I guess the question comes up to, you know, which proposal do you start with? And we could spend a lot of time, like we did last time, arguing about docks, arguing about, you know, what's the fairness issue and everything else. But I think we have to get the surcharge. I'm supporting the motion at this time, just to get something there so that we can have it in place. I don't think it's unfair. Councilmember Kirschner is proposing. It does. I had some questions in regard to meeting the, if we do lose 20% or 25% with the elimination of the need-based programs, that should balance that out. Is that correct, Mr. Aguilar?
It would appear that way, yes, at this point. Looking at the numbers that we projected anyway.
Councilmember Mann, and then Brenner, and then Weimer.
Ms. Kirshner, what, I missed the thing that you were referring to as far as our treasurer saying he could not afford to administrate the needs-based tickets?
Well, he testified during our budget session that that was becoming more and more complicated and difficult for their office to do. And so I'd like to support his efforts in, oh, okay.
Oh, Mr. Oliver, can you clarify that for us? Because I didn't catch that at the